Hi, I'm Woody Huffines. I own the NerdsToGo in McKinney and Frisco, Texas, and this is Tech for the Untechnical. If I own a Macintosh computer, I don't have to worry about viruses, right? Wrong. There was a time that it was certainly true that you probably didn't really have to worry about viruses if you were on a Macintosh computer as opposed to a Windows PC, because there weren't that many people writing viruses or writing malware for the Macintosh operating system. And why is that? Well, it wasn't as big a target and it wasn't as valuable a target. Most corporate environments are using Windows machines. If you're going to hack into a bank, you probably want to learn how to hack a Windows machine, not a Macintosh machine. In the corporate world, not many people use Macintosh machines, especially where there's a lot of money involved for transactional kinds of things, banks. I mean, there are some high-dollar design firms, for example, that might use a Macintosh computer. But to really get into that business and make a bunch of money by subverting it, not as easy to do as a bank or something else. So the first piece of this is, in the past, Macintosh was a small enough target that nobody was really aiming for it. It didn't pay to hack Macintosh computers the way it would pay if you could hack a Windows computer. So it's just a matter of the threat surface or how many computers out there were to get. The next thing that made Macintosh relatively safe from malware and viruses for quite a while was that all the people who were writing computer viruses were writing it in the Windows environment, so that the people who weren't necessarily really good at writing malware could find malware posted on the internet. And since not as many people were writing malware for Apple computers, not as many people were selling it or posting it on the internet. It's kind of a self-propagating prophecy, if you will. Since there's not as much code out there, there's not as much code out there. So when you combine the popularity of the operating system and how profitable it was to hack Macintosh computers, and that most of the code out there for the script kiddies to get a hold of is Windows code, and the big businesses are the ones that usually use the Windows computers versus Macintosh, that's why in the past it probably was not an unreasonable thing to say that you didn't have to worry that much about viruses or malware if you had a Macintosh computer. That's no longer the case. 2019 Malwarebytes indicated that there were as many unwanted pieces of software on Macintosh computers as Windows computers when you talk about per machine. Now, granted, the kind of software that the Macintosh computers were getting was a little less severe than the kind of software that the Windows computers were getting. Mostly in the Macintosh world, it was what was called a potentially unwanted program. It was something that you really didn't want on your computer, but it didn't necessarily hack your computer, steal your data, or mess you up. That's changing. If you look at the search terms, or if you look at the search frequency for Apple computer, Macintosh computer, Mac computer, and malware, what you see a pretty low incidence in the news until you get peaks and spikes. And those peaks and spikes are incidents of having malware attack a Mac computer. It's kind of news on the Mac side still, but it happens more and more. So if you have a Macintosh computer, you have an Apple computer, you need to take some steps to keep it safe. And the first of those is, and I don't understand this, Apple computers come with the firewall set to off by default. So go in your security and privacy settings, get the firewall turned on. So if something bad propagates on the internet, at least you have a shot at keeping it out of your computer. As always, back your computer up and take care of it. For a long time, because in the corporate environment, most of the corporate computers were Windows computers, the enterprise level antivirus and anti-malware programs were very heavily aimed at the Windows machines. Now, while the free ones, McAfee and Norton, for example, and to some extent Avast or AVG, some of them didn't have an enterprise level antivirus software to put on a Macintosh computer, and that's changing. Here recently, Avast, which Barracuda Networks and Avast are now working together, they have an enterprise level antivirus that is now available on the Macintosh computer. So if you haven't put one on because you thought, I have a Mac, I don't need to worry about it, I would consider the Avast product. And you can talk to NerdsToGo. It's the one that I know and trust, and that's the one that I would recommend. So get your firewall set up, find you an enterprise level antivirus to go put on the computer, and then make sure that you only download or install applications from reputable sites like the Apple Store. Don't go out to Bob's website and get some. Anyway, the idea with the Macintosh computer is as it has grown in popularity and there's more and more money to be had by hacking them, the more and more likely they are to become hacked. So just because you have a Macintosh computer doesn't mean that you can just forget about security, because here's the last point. A lot of security, a lot of the bad things that happen to computer users are not necessarily a virus or malware, but a phishing scam or an email scam where somebody hacks the human and not the computer. And whether you have an Apple or a Windows machine, you're still human and thus vulnerable to getting scammed and hacked. So there's a whole lot of things about computer security and keeping safe on the internet that you need to know. And whether your computer can get a virus or malware or not is just a small part of it. I'm Woody Huffines. I own the NerdsToGo in McKinney and Frisco, Texas. This is Tech for the Untechnical. You know the drill. Hit the subscribe button below, mash the notification bell, give me a thumbs up, and leave us a comment.